Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Carrow Road under the David Wagner era, um, which sort of still looks the same. And some would say it is still the same because Norwich have exited the FA Cup. Got to use the words FA Cup as much as possible in this video verdict because it's the last chance I'm going to get to say them. But yes, Norwich have exited the FA Cup at the third round stage, at the first hurdle, thanks to this 1-0 defeat to Blackburn. It was a Blackburn team that was much changed from the team that won here in the league a few weeks ago before Christmas. It would have been a much changed, you could say, a second string team. They still had some very good players playing, like Bradley Dack and Ben Brereton Diaz, of course. But it wasn't as strong as their first choice team. I think that's fair to say. And the game was decided after 31 minutes, thanks to a Jack Vale goal that basically came from Norwich trying to play it out from back. Grant Hanley underselling a pass back to Tim Krul, which was then robbed, and Blackburn worked it well, and Vale side-footed home. And of course, the primary factor around this entire game was that it was David Wagner's first in charge of Norwich City since he was confirmed on Friday, which was, to me, the most logical result of Dean Smith's sacking from the Tuesday the sacking took place. And I'll get this out of the way now. There is a read on The Athletic over in terms of Norwich's process for appointing Wagner, and also, of course, there's the previous read from before on Dean Smith's sacking. So worth the read if you haven't had a chance. If you are an Athletic subscriber, if you're not, go for it. Why not? Loads of football stuff on there, and then there's my Norwich stuff too. So, where are we then? Well, with this, I mean, people will try and make the point, and have made the point, and they will try and say that it's really important now that Dean Smith's gone. And, you know, this is, I think, a significant part of why the decision was made. Now that he has gone, it is all about treating him as the negative impact at this football club. And now let's deal with all the positive that can result with the fact that he's not here anymore. Look on everything as positive. Cover everything as positive. Be positive about what's going on. Obviously, my personal stance is that I will report on things objectively as I see them, as I always do. Had the question a lot, what do I think of David Wagner's appointment? Well, I don't know yet. I mean, I have an initial view, which is that I feel that what Wagner did at Huddersfield was fantastic. And I remember them coming down here at Carrow Road on that season when they were on the way to promotion, and they were outstanding, and they tore Norwich a different one with a really exciting brand of football. And quite clearly, if he can make that happen here, then it will be exciting. Absolutely. It did rather unravel at Huddersfield a bit. They lost a lot of energy. It's been hit and miss for him in his other two jobs for various reasons. And taking this job is not the same as walking into Huddersfield. Also, there are a huge amount of differences and also an immediacy to this situation at Norwich. So what it is fascinating. How that all pays out, I don't know. I was woken up by one of my boys on Friday night, and I couldn't get to sleep for another hour. And one of the things keeping me awake was the idea of this Norwich squad trying to gegenpress. But it's not quite that straightforward either. And ultimately, the judgment of how it works will come down to what we see on the pitch. That's how I do my job. It's how you as supporters view everything you see. And generally, general perceptions do tune into what the issues are or what's going well. There is something quite organic about a football club and how it works. And you can't really hide things if it's not secure underneath. That's what I find. And if it is, or if it's just a beautiful bit of momentum, then it can be unstoppable. I got no idea what we're going to get from here. I'm not going to try and say that I do, and I'm not going to try and sugarcoat things. I'm not going to try and dig them out. I'm not going to be cynical. I'm not going to be bitter. I'm not going to be hyped over the excitement of all this. But let's delve into it, because ultimately today, so Norwich made a silly mistake at the back, which has cost them the game. It worries me that Norwich, in two outings against Blackburn and this second time against a weaker Blackburn, have been unable to do anything other than lose. That is a worry. I think even for a first game in charge, and that there were a lot to promise, the fact that they didn't have the character I don't know if that's maybe not the right word, because sometimes you can be unfortunate. Some things just don't align, and this doesn't really matter, and maybe that's more the element. But they didn't have enough to do anything other than lose tonight, which is, I find that's probably quite disappointing. But there was a lot, I thought, in terms of how they were going about it that would give me optimism. I thought the energy was good. Obviously, they ran out of puff in the end of probably both halves. The final third quality was really lacking. So they had lots of good opportunities and created good shooting opportunities, but didn't really look like scoring, weirdly. The thing that then stuck with me, which I thought was fascinating, is that David Wagner basically said underneath, look, we had 2-3 days, which is interesting because I think, let's not worry about when he was appointed. But they had a few days to work on it, and a lot of their work had basically been done on how they progressed the ball from their defensive third into the midfield third and take it from there. But they didn't really work on what to do in terms of chance creation in the final third. So it would look the same because apparently, according to David Wagner, they didn't really do a lot of work on it. That's encouraging because I thought there was a lot of, even though the goal was a stupid error, there was a lot of good stuff in terms of the combinations Norwich were playing out wide, the sort of shapes they were getting in, and the way they were flooding forward at times, very much like what you would have seen from Huddersfield in that sort of high energy days. And it's one thing to question where the strengths are in this Norwich squad and how they will take to things and quite what that actual quality level is. But this is surely a squad that is capable of finishing in the top six, regardless. I mean, they should have beaten Blackburn both occasions, really, had they been in any sort of a good moment. And that is probably one of his biggest challenges, David Wagner, is to start looking like they can beat the better teams. I mean, we're going to get the first instance of that next weekend at Preston, because Preston are pretty good. They're tough, they're resolute, they're nothing special from a championship perspective, but that is a tough task. And they need to show up against that. And there's not going to be really all the extra time to work on it. So really, really interesting. I thought there were some players who looked good. I thought Gabriel Saras still looks like he's doing good things, I think, in recent weeks. I'm impressed with him. I thought Dimi Yanulis came back into the side and looked full of running. Max Aaron, speaking to him after the game, genuinely seemed in a happy place. It can be a bit miserable sometimes, Max, so that was nice to see. So some good elements there, clearly. And I do think it will be really interesting to see what they look like away from home after another week of training with David Wagner. So that's exciting. You know, in a what we're going to get kind of way. That's really interesting, intriguing, and exciting. But at no point am I discounting the concerns of what this squad is capable of or where this goes from here. And we will see. We'll let it play out. But I'm not. I think all of you guys, especially, would rather sit here and just look forward to something for a little bit. Two little things that struck me. Speaking to my wife this morning about football for a change. Doesn't happen very often. And she was like, "Yeah, but you don't want to do anything unless there's some hope." And I can certainly, I mean, my job's different, but certainly in terms of people coming to the football, which there were 20,000 here on a non-season ticket day, so that's a pretty decent crowd. You want the hope of seeing something, especially how difficult it's been in recent years. So let's at least embrace that and see where it goes, because no one knows. So there was that as well. And some really nice observations at the end of the game, where it was clear that David Wagner wanted to. Sorry, I don't feel comfortable enough just saying his surname yet. Really interesting. And in the hot takes, I called him Daniel and left it in. And, just be honest. That's me, Mr. Honest. But yeah, David Wagner made a point of getting out there and applauding the sides of the ground, and they were receptive to that. And there was a moment where I was like, oh, and even Stuart Webber himself said it, don't just want a happy clapper, which is absolutely right. But, fair play. And I hope that is just a seed that grows, and it doesn't become, a difficult few weeks where the results and things aren't picking up and you're still applauding everyone. It's really difficult. We feel like we're on a knife edge, really, on an edge. We don't know which way it's going to go. But I think anyone connected with Norwich City Football Club will know the way they want it to go. And I think that's probably the thing to remember right now. Because if it doesn't go that way, there's plenty of time to deal with that. And you know that I will call it as it is. But, 90 minutes of the new manager's reign in an FA Cup game, there is literally nothing really else I would like to read into it. We've got long ways to go. There's very little much more I can say, I think, in terms of the actual events. What I do know is Tim Krul played, which is probably because he hasn't been playing. So there's a chance to give him some minutes. Be interesting then. I would imagine Angus comes back in for the Preston game. No, Ben Gibson, who I think had an injury. I think that was what David Wagner said, or he hadn't been training. Sam Byram has felt his hamstring again, which is obviously a real issue, especially as Sam is out of contract come the summer. It's hard not to think about that. Sam McCullum came on actually and looked quite sharp when he did come on. Excuse me, my nose is running. Not a very nice habit for a video. No, Todd Cantwell, he's been linked with Rangers. I don't know anything about that in particular, but it does sort of, when something just sort of goes, you hear it and you're like, So obviously if I hear anything concrete, I'll let you know in due course. But can't say I'd be terribly surprised. I can imagine Norwich being open to just taking an offer, but we'll see. I don't know. It's just hunches. So don't take my word for it. And I think that was it. In terms of, I feel like there's something else. And Josh Sargent was rested because he had a World Cup to deal with, which he did very well in. So, all done. That is it. That is the start of the David Wagner era. How exciting. I better go and do some work. Off to Preston we go. We're not going to Deepdale. It's a very long way. Can't wait. And the On The Ball podcast is back on Monday night, which is tomorrow, isn't it? It is Sunday. Monday night. So tune in for us in this. Us then. It's our first podcast since before Christmas. Wow, we are lazy. So that will be interesting. Especially as tomorrow, I believe, which is Monday, we have the actual unveiling press conference with David Wagner. And Stuart Webber, sports director Stuart Webber, will be answering some questions. Who knows whose questions or which questions? Maybe it'll be all the questions. I look forward to finding out. That will be Monday afternoon. I'm sure there'll be loads of coverage of it live, but of course we'll get to talk about that on the podcast. Lovely. I love this place. Nice to be here. Good atmosphere. Well done, supporters. It was good in here today. Just about kept it together. Look forward to the next time we are back here, which won't be until towards the end of the month. And I was just having a little look in the old Roy Waller commentary box. It's I know Chris Gorham prefers it in the stand, but it's needs a bit of a tidy out. Really. Look at that size. Look at that monitor, by the way. I think that's got the old Doom on it on the BBC computers. Well, I'm showing my age there, aren't I? I think the BBC boys are up from that country now. Anyway, that's enough. Let's wrap it up. See you all later. Sweet dreams and podcast and stuff on incoming. Read the Athletic. Get rid of that. Bye, FA Cup. It was absolute blast territory this season. Thank you for that. And back to the league we go. Thank God we can concentrate on that from here on in. Take cares. See you later. And goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen. Cheerio. Bye-bye.